Monday may be the most important day in recent history for all markets, as tariffs are set to be imposed on April 9th, and we haven't heard anything from Trump in over 36 hours. There's been no mention of any potential tariff deals, phone calls, or delays, which means we are likely going live and the markets are hating it. In other words, he truly meant it when he said he's certainly not watching the stock market and began announcing this on March 6th. However, with markets where they're at as of recently, we're just talking a few days ago, Donald Trump urged Federal Chairman Jerome Powell to cut interest rates immediately, because this would be the perfect time that he needs to stop playing politics, that inflation is down, eggs are down, jobs are up, and if the Fed doesn't act now, things are going to get worse. It truly seems like they have a spiff or some beef, and right now Donald Trump is forcing the hand of the Fed. But things are looking dim, and I won't pretend to sugarcoat it. Markets are truly in terror of what comes next. The uncertainty is eating them alive, as the entire crypto market is down, the entire TradFi market is down, and when you look at the last 24 hours, Bitcoin is down nearly 7%, Ethereum down 13%, XRP down 12%, Solana down 13%, and on the list goes. Now, in yesterday's video, I mentioned how I'd be making a very small pilot buy with a portion of my portfolio to test the waters. To be fair, it was at 10%, and almost immediately I got stopped out at the $2.08 level. In other words, my original analysis was correct, that we are likely going lower. Now, when you do the math on this 2.75% loss of 10% of my portfolio, I lost just a quarter of 1% of my money, which really cost me nothing to potentially get some good upside, but to save against all of the downside risk. And I think that is where we really need to be right now. In this kind of a market environment, it's important to keep your losses small and live to fight another day. By no means is this just any of my opinion or financial advice. It's just wisdom when it comes to investing. But let's have a listen to what I shared. I mean, I'm already entering with a small pilot buy. However, I'm not going to be shocked if I get stopped out below this low right here at about 208. So that's kind of where I want to get stopped out. It's a very small pilot buy just to test the waters. And the reason I'm making this buy, still, things are getting so interesting right now. Even Warren Buffett is speaking up. And by the way, he's someone you definitely want to listen to. As of all of the billionaires that are currently in the market, he's actually protected against the most downside risk. So we'll be covering this alongside a post from Ki Young Ju, who is one of the co-founders, or I believe the founder of Crypto Quant, which is a blockchain analytics platform. He's constantly in the trenches doing deep digging and research and homework into what makes a bull market cycle good, what makes it healthy, where tops typically happen, and now he's stating that the bull cycle is over and explains why. But the real question is the bull market actually over, or is he just buying into all of the bearish fear as well? Now, in prior videos, it's been an onslaught of hate, specifically on my videos for calling for lower lows. Again, I understand if you're invested in XRP and that's the majority of your bag. Yet here we are back to the 190 and 188 range and holding on by a thread while the rest of the market pukes. As already the E-mini, which is a futures index of the S&P 500, is trading pre-market and gapping yet again even lower. In other words, these gaps and these dumps on the entire index might actually take the entire crypto market down with it, as this thing is basically falling off a cliff and there's no end in sight. So what happens next? Will markets and XRP survive, or is this the move we've been calling for to lower lows, which will happen in the next 24 hours? Let's find out. And as always, even if you're not feeling bullish, if you're still feeling blessed and you're grateful to be alive and even have access to technology to watch videos like this, then go ahead and comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. And this video is not going to be terribly long because at the end of the day, I think the only thing people care to hear anymore is what actually happens next, as markets are really not looking too good. And I bet you money if you were sitting in watching XRP at about 330, 340, or heck, even 280, and now you're seeing it puke down to 188 yet again, you probably are feeling like you got punched in the gut. Now, it's going to be very difficult to continue to justify holding through everything, but again, this isn't meant to be financial advice. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you what I've done, what I've been seeing, what I've been consistently calling for over the last couple of weeks, and more particularly this last week with a potential pilot buy where I said, hey, this thing is looking stronger than the rest of the market, and for a literal day it did. But guess what? I got stopped out of that position with less than 0.25% of my portfolio, or I think it was literally 0.27%. In other words, not even 1% of the portfolio, to see, hey, maybe this thing will turn around. And guess what happened? It didn't, which leads me to believe that the original theory was right, that this thing is likely going in for some lower lows. So where exactly are we going to be going? And by the way, go ahead and watch those videos yet again. Now, I'm going to cover a bit of news, then we're going to dive into the price action, see what's actually happening, and how you can prepare for something like this. So as of April 6th in the morning, in other words, today, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said tariffs are coming on April 9th, crushing hopes of a tariff delay before the 6 p.m. ET or Eastern Time futures open. Now, when you look at a chart like this and then you hear something like that into a Monday market open, I'm pretty confident that people are not only feeling uncertain, but would rather not carry all of the risk of being in the market, which is going to lead far more people to want to sell. The problem is if you have far more sellers and far less buyers, typically markets dump. And so already we're seeing the E-mini dump quite heavy on this news. And you can see that there's virtually no wick on the current open, which leads me to believe that even with these dip buyers down here, things are likely going to come in lower, especially into a market open. Now, on the market open, we might actually see this gap down turn into something like where it pumps right back up into this range here. But it remains to be seen, and things aren't looking too good, as the S&P 500 was sitting at about $5,074. The ES1, which is a futures exchange, index, I should say, is sitting at 4930. So yes, this is a pretty nasty little gap down. And by the way, these three candles are very bearish. Now, again, the reason this matters is because it has consistently been affecting the crypto market. As you can see here, Bitcoin is currently down about from $83,000 to $78,000 in that same period of time, breaking these local range lows with this sell-off and profit taking. And now volume on the lower time frames is consistently trending to the upside. Even dip buyers right here could not withhold or sustain the price. In other words, this sell pressure right here, this expansion of volume, is truly proving to be the move. It's truly proving that bears are in control. And so another touchdown into this range right here of about $77,000, or on a very bad market open, things are looking pretty nasty for the entire crypto market, and Bitcoin is likely going to start to make new lows. Now, if Bitcoin starts to make new lows, so will XRP, as XRP failed for 1, 2, 3, 4 straight times to break above that 215 range and then puked with the rest of the market, and has now officially completed its head and shoulders pattern on a 4-hour time frame. Now, it's no secret what's caused all of this. It's the fact that either Trump is playing games with the Fed or literally isn't watching the markets and is focused more on the long-term sustainability and future of industry and independence inside of the United States when it comes to manufacturing. So that said, the tariffs are likely going to remain. We haven't heard word, but I'm pretty confident we're going to hear from the White House tomorrow, and likely there's been a lot of deals made with a lot of different countries, but I don't think that's going to stop the selling, which leads me to believe we're in for some lower lows. Now, Warren Buffett actually had something to say on it, saying that tariffs are an act of war. Let's have a listen to one of the best investors in history.
How do you think tariffs will affect the economy?
I mean, tariffs are actually, we've had a lot of experience with them. They're an act of war to some degree.
How do you think tariffs will impact inflation?
Over time, they're a tax on goods. I mean, the tooth fairy doesn't pay them. I mean, and see, you always have to just, and then what? You always have to ask that question in economics. Always say, and then what?
So is there an answer for that when people say, inflation persists, consumer prices keep going up, when's the end in sight?
No, prices will be higher 10 years from now and 20 years from now and 30 years from now.
And what do you think about what's happening in Washington right now? About efforts to
I think it's Washington.
Yeah.
It's, technology changes things, all kinds of things, but Washington is Washington. And the problem with politics is that you tend to have to make tiny compromises as you go along.
In other words, Warren Buffett is probably correct on something like this, that in the short term, tariffs are a basic economic act of war. However, to also quote Warren Buffett, in the short term, markets are a voting machine. In the long term, they are a weighing machine. And so I am pretty confident that from the higher levels in Congress and in government, arguably at the presidential seat, they're thinking about the longer term and the weight that the United States is going to carry, using a plan like tariffs to not only lower taxes, but to make us independent when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to chips, when it comes to our drugs, and on the list goes. So maybe Trump really isn't watching the stock market. Maybe he's focused on the long term. Maybe he's tired of Wall Street consistently getting richer while Main Street continually gets poorer. Or maybe this is truly his way to force the hand of the Fed. And I think this is the most interesting theory. The fact that since day one, he's consistently been calling for Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed, to cut interest rates. However, he doesn't seem to care to listen to Donald Trump and definitely would not resign if asked, which begs the question, what's really going on? In my opinion, I think he's really forcing the hand of the Fed. With markets crashing as they are, the Fed is going to have to act fast, and they're going to have to act by lowering interest rates, but by then it's likely already too late. And so I think it's important to pay attention to people that are calling for a potential bear. Now, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen, and I'm not saying we're not going to see some sort of a retrace and a pullback back to certain lows, which we'll talk about here closer to the end of the video, which is coming up shortly. But Key Young is talking about how the bull cycle is over, and he uses a lot of data when it comes to the realized cap and the market cap. And so if you want, you can check out this post with Key Young Ju over on X. That said, here's what he actually shared. The realized cap shows how much actual money is entering the market, while the market cap reflects how the price is reacting. If realized cap is growing, but market cap is stagnant or falling, it's indicative that capital is flowing in, but prices aren't rising. A classic bearish signal. And currently, capital is entering the market, but prices aren't responding. Again, typical of a bear. In short, when small capital drives prices up, it's a bull market. People like me and you. When even large capital can't push prices upward, it's a bear. Current data clearly points to the latter. And here we are with the data. I'll go ahead and get out of the way. You can see right here that we are officially in bearish territory with this one indicator, market cap versus realized cap. And so taking a look at futures really helps to give us more perspective on what day traders are doing. And when I come over to XRP, you can see that we literally only have, and I'm going to try to get out of the way or stay out of the way, $73 million of long leverage between multiple exchanges, Binance, OKX, and Bybit. While on the flip side, we have far more people playing the short side, sitting on about $318 million for more than 3 to 4 times the amount of money. And that's across the board. And even if I go to the daily time frame, you can see it's the exact same case, which leads me to believe we are definitely going in for some lower lows. And arguably, when you go ahead and look at open interest on Bitcoin alone, and by the way, this is going to be the exact same on XRP, you can see that right here from this local high right here at $83,000 into the dump of $77,000, as the market has been dumping, open interest has been climbing, which basically means that not only are you going to get a bunch of long liquidations below this range, but that shorts are opening on each one of these candles. So as more shorts enter the market, things are not looking too hot. Now, someone says, well, why would anyone want to short it? And, you know, if you're holding it, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, the reason you would want to short this is because people and big players can make a lot of money being on the right side of this trade. So any even just likely retrace would be a time, in my opinion, to get out. And it could be a little while. It could be another couple days before we do see some sort of price action to the downside. But with this dump on XRP right below these range lows right here, especially on the closes of these candles 4-hour time frame, again at about $2, and now with the breakdown, any little retrace, in my opinion, would be something where you want to potentially sell the rip, especially on volume like this. You can see that there's virtually no buy volume. Yes, we have a local low right here at about 186, but I think if the market opens in pukes, you're not going to be too happy. So again, this isn't financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do, but things are not looking great for the entire crypto market with this uncertainty. And at the end of the day, we've had a lot of time to prepare. Now, if you're one of those people who's like, well, I've already held since, 40 cents, 50 cents, that's totally fine. But just understand it's probably going to feel like a punch to the gut if this thing dumps to 150 to $1 over the upcoming weeks or even month. And this would have given you a lot more dry powder on the side to accumulate or buy those dips if you weren't typically over leveraged or basically already all in. Now that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed the video or at least learned something new or maybe just got some clarity on what potentially happens next, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and also head to bullrunners.com to check out Altcoin Pro University. This is stuff that I've been covering in depth and teaching and training our entire group and members on. We have about 1,000 members inside of Altcoin Pro University. You can find the link in the description below. And if you want to join my live Tuesday call that is private only for our members, where I cover everything technical inside of the markets and actually answer questions with you live, then head to bullrunners.com. But that's not all you get. You get a bunch of courses, classes, trainings. This is bar none the best platform in the world to get your crypto education going. Even if it were to save you a bunch of risk and downside, then why not take advantage of it? Why not take advantage of your cash and put it into some sort of DeFi yield to earn interest on any crypto that you've been sitting on, even if it's the USDC or USDT or RLUSD or whatever it is. You get altcoin picks, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, airdrop alerts, a community that is constantly in the game, learning and growing and sharing things with each other. And also you get some bonuses. So head on over to bullrunners.com, check that link out. Thanks so much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.